Welcome and good morning to everyone. I appreciate everybody joining our webcast this morning. I think we have over 70 people signed up, so we're really excited about the presentation we're going to have today. So today's CLE is Being Fit to Practice Law, and it's brought to you by the Nebraska State Bar Association and the Nebraska Lawyers Assistance Program. A couple of housekeeping items as we begin. The first is today's presentation is approved for 2 hours of professional responsibility credit under Nebraska MCLE. You'll receive an email, I think you already have, with the activity code on it that you can use to log your hours, and you also receive an email following the presentation showing that you've completed this particular broadcast. We're broadcasting via webcast only today. Our featured speaker is broadcasting from Colorado here in a few moments. So we won't have a live audience. We encourage you to ask questions using your chat function within the webinar page. Keep in mind there is a delay between the time you send your question and the time it pops up on our end. So don't wait till the last minute to send your questions. Just ask them as they arise, and we'll take breaks periodically throughout the presentation in order to read those questions and let the speaker address them. Today's presentation is the second in a series of proactive steps you can take to improve your overall mental and physical health. A few months ago, we brought you a CLE on the science of sleep, how to develop good sleep habits, and some steps you can take to address various sleep disturbances. I'll begin today's presentation with a few remarks regarding the movement within our profession to improve overall attorney wellness. Why it's not only important to the individual, but it's important to our profession, important to our courts, important to our legal employers. Then I'll introduce our featured speaker, Judy Barbe, who will provide you with both insight and practical recommendations on how to incorporate good nutrition practices in your daily life. I'll talk more about Judy's background, qualifications, and interest in this topic in a few moments. So, to begin, sorry about that. We had a little technical glitch. And so I'll begin by talking again a few remarks about overall attorney wellness. Turn it over to our speaker. Okay, here we go. Let's start with talking a little bit about what is wellness when we talk about attorney wellness. We have two pretty good definitions up here on the screen. The first kind of focuses on the elements of wellness, our physical, mental, and the social aspects of our life, and how those really are interact together. If we're experiencing a deficit in any one of these elements, the other two are necessarily affected in some way, sometimes significantly. And struggles with wellness can affect our ability, obviously, to practice law in a competent, ethical manner. The good news is there's proactive steps you can take, and we're talking about one of those today regarding good nutrition. The second definition is really focused on the fact that wellness needs to be, conscious, meaning it needs to be intentional, and we need to take responsibility for our own wellness. It needs to be self-directed. Wellness doesn't happen by accident. We want to educate ourselves like we're doing today and incorporate these good habits in our daily lives. So I would mention that wellness, as I talked about, there's kind of a movement. There is a movement within our profession to improve attorney wellness, and this is really, from wellness in our daily lives and how we function as human beings and individuals within the practice of law. And then on to the more, severe and significant things that can affect us. And certainly here at NLAP, we see some of those. And I can tell you that, overall wellness is a good preventative tool, things that can help prevent some of those more significant issues from becoming more severe or head them off earlier. We'll talk about that in a second. The Bar Association's courts and the ABA have recognized the importance of attorney wellness. They've put resources behind it. They've created a voice for the wellness movement. The reason you're getting CLE today and professional responsibility CLE is because the courts have recognized how critical good attorney wellness is for lawyers to be able to comply with the rules of professional responsibility. A deficit in attorney wellness, mental or physical wellness, can affect your ability, for instance, to meet the competence requirement for a lawyer. It can also affect your ability to meet the diligence requirement for a lawyer, or affect how often you can maybe communicate with your clients. So it's really critical that we be mindful about this and intentional about improving our overall wellness. The ABA also created a task force about a year ago, or about 2 years ago, and offered us a task force report about a year ago regarding some kind of practical, proactive steps that our profession and the various stakeholders within our profession can take. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we conclude our CLE today. So why is wellness important? Well, beyond the fact that it's important to the individual and to the quality of our lives, it also has a very practical outside benefits. You can help reduce medical costs. We all know how much medical insurance costs and medical expenses are today, and anything we can do to improve that obviously helps your bottom line. Decreased absenteeism. Healthier employees have a lower absenteeism rate. You can see the savings within the U.S. Absenteeism costs us an estimated $74 billion a year. And so anything we can do, we're not going to eliminate absenteeism completely, but certainly there can be improvement in that area. Increased job performance. Employee health has a clear positive influence on job performance. So, obviously it ties back to some degree to the absenteeism issue, but also, employees that aren't absent, but at their job and are struggling from a physical or mental health standpoint, have sometimes effects on their job performance. And then lastly, job satisfaction. Healthier employees, studies have shown, report greater job satisfaction. Or the flip side, unhealthy employees, either from a mental and or physical standpoint, struggle more with job satisfaction. So, NLAP's role is to really twofold. One is immediate need. We help connect attorneys, judges, and law students with available resources and provide them an ongoing support network. So those are the individuals who are, frankly, they're having very often very significant effects from a mental health condition, and we want to make sure that they're getting connected with the right resources. We don't provide treatment with NLAP, but we're a conduit between those individuals and hopefully the appropriate treatment. And then probably most importantly, we can be that ongoing support network. We're not going to send you off to a doctor or a psychologist and just cut you loose, but we want to keep in contact with you, make sure you have the appropriate resources, encouragement, answer questions, whatever we can to get to help you follow through with your whatever treatment plan will help improve your condition. And the second one is the proactive change. We want to improve overall wellness within the profession through proactive education and outreach. And again, today is one step in that process. As mentioned before, we did a CLE on sleep. I think that's important. Put those together with nutrition. Those are a couple of those critical pieces within the proactive change area. I think the other two would really be physical activity. We've heard a lot about how the importance of physical activity, whether that's exercise or that's just getting up and moving around, not sitting at a desk for 8 straight hours during the day, but incorporating some physical activity, walking or other type of activity in our daily lives, and then social interaction. And I can tell you the social interaction piece is as critical as the other three. Lawyers that become isolated, don't feel like they have a lot of social outlets, they're much greater risk for other types of mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. And so we want to make sure there's appropriate outlets for social interaction for lawyers. There is a strong also correlation, between deficits in these areas and your ability to practice law in a competent, ethical manner. So we want to, that's where I think the court system sees the need for us to improve wellness. I know our Counsel for Discipline's office is appreciative of any efforts we can do to improve overall wellness. They see the correlation between, the issues they see in lawyers and things like mental health, wellness. So with that having been said, I'm going to turn you over to our featured speaker today, Judy Barbe. I can tell you, I think you really enjoy her presentation. Judy's interest in food started early in her life. She realized later that her enthusiasm was unique, that most 10-year-olds don't pore over a Betty Crocker cookbook in order to prepare for a slumber party. She indicated she served a delightful ice cream stuffed cantaloupe. She has a master's degree in food science and human nutrition. She's been exploring this field for a number of years. She nudges people towards delicious, better for you foods, all on the same fork, and she does it through her website, through original recipes, through speaking engagements and webinar series like we're doing today. She's also the author of 2 books, Your 6-Week Guide to Live Best, Simple Solutions for Fresh Food and Well-Being, and Live Best Seasonally, and is a longtime regional newspaper columnist. She delivers food, nutrition, and health information through digital, television, radio, and print publications. Her recipes and recommendations have been featured on such websites as cookinglight.com, readersdigest.com, prevention.com, time.com, and womensday.com. You can connect with her on Twitter and Instagram at Judy Barbe, and visit her blog and website at www.livebest.info. She is the past chair of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Food and Culinary Professionals Practice Group, and has been recognized as an outstanding dietitian. Judy also happens to be married to a lawyer, so she has some unique insight for us today as well. She knows firsthand that what we put on our fork and how we use our feet and how we feed our soul has effects on our productivity, our billable hours, and our satisfaction in our law practice. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Judy, and she's going to nudge us along the path of good nutrition. Judy? Judy, are you with us? There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. And thank you to both you and Amy for inviting me to be part of this conversation. You mentioned I'm married to an attorney. He's got a transactional practice with some litigation. I know firsthand the issues that you all struggle with. And, we work hard in our family to help him be fit to practice. And so I've just developed an interest in reaching out to attorneys to help them nudge you along to live better. The tagline of my business is you must be present to win. And that means showing up in your own life to live the life you want. Thank you also to those who provided feedback as you registered for this webinar. Amy asked you to reach out to me if you had questions or you wanted to identify your own personal roadblocks and challenges in meeting your health goals. That was really helpful to me so that I could make these comments pointed toward you and your ability to be fit to practice. So a few years ago, I gave a talk and a woman came up afterwards and said to me, "Thank you for making it okay to eat." And at first I kind of laughed. It was, a little funny that she would think she needed my permission to eat. But those words have haunted me ever since I gave that talk years ago, that she did need my permission to eat food. And so that really has become my mission, to solve the question of how to fill your plate in a healthy way and how to enjoy food. Because I'll tell you, my love of nutrition began with a love of eating and food. And I just try to make my fork be as power-packed as I can. I want to introduce you to my family. Up in the upper left, that's my mom and her twin sister on my grandpa's lap. Both my mom and sister have high blood pressure. My mom and her sister, her twin. Unfortunately, her twin passed away from complications due to that high blood pressure. She was on dialysis the last several years of her life and died from that. The upper right, that's my grandma. She died from complications of osteoporosis. She lived a long life, but osteoporosis and the debilitation of that got her in the end. On the lower left, that's my grandma and grandpa. My grandma died from cancer, my grandpa from heart disease. And there I am with my dad. He's my power of one. My dad's had cancer and heart disease. And so why I show this to you is this is my family tree. And the reason I live the life I do, the reason I'm here to nudge you along is because all of these diseases have a genetic component. But lifestyle plays a huge role in preventing it. 3 things: diet, lack of physical activity, and smoking are the causes of most chronic diseases. But I bet your family tree looks pretty similar to my family tree. And if that's true, there are things you can do today to start trimming up that tree to make it a healthier one. I know the law is a jealous mistress and requires a long and constant courtship. Words spoken by Supreme Court Justice in the 1800s. And it's something that we struggle with even today. I live it because I'm married to an attorney. So I know that that can be a frustration for you and for your family. So I want to say thank you for saying yes to you. I know you're busy. I know change can be hard, but I also know this is your journey. So wherever you are is where you begin. We all have 24 hours in a day, but not everyone has billable hours, filing deadlines, court appearances, and demanding clients. So thanks for showing up today. Really, I think the secret to your reboot may be managing your time, or managing your energy and not your time, because time is fixed, but your energy has flex. So one of the things that we asked you to do was to print out the Live Best checkup and the Live Best goal sheet. Today, we're going to see where you are. Let's take a look at where you are so we can see what you can do to improve your own life. What I want you to do right now is to take a few minutes. We're doing this in real time. I want you to write down on a sheet of paper everything that you've eaten in the last 24 hours. So 10:15, let's see, it's 11:15 there. So 11:15 yesterday till 11:15 today. And I want you to just write down, what have you eaten in those last 24 hours? So at 11:15, maybe you were starting to think about lunch, or maybe you were having a snack. You have something in your desk drawer that maybe you munched on yesterday around 11:15. Write that down. Now think about lunch itself. Did you go out and grab something? Did you take a walk to Jimmy John's and order something off the menu? Or did you bring something from home? Did you skip lunch because you had a client meeting? With that lunch, did you have anything to drink? Now think about in the afternoon. Was it somebody's birthday, so you had a celebration? Was there birthday cake? Did you have a cup of coffee? Maybe grab a hot chocolate from the Keurig. Then as we move on to yesterday evening, what did that look like? Was it a grab and go kind of thing because of kids' track or soccer practice? Did you go home and cook? Did you order a pizza? The Voice is over, so we're not all watching The Voice, but you know, in the evening, was there something that you did that might have been food related. Munch on popcorn, have a cocktail, have some ice cream. And then this morning, what was that like? Do you start your day with a cup of coffee? What do you put in it? A splash of cream, milk, sugar? And what was your breakfast? As you came in the office, you keep a candy dish at the front desk, so you nibbled on that. I hope you're not on page 2, but I want you now to use your Live Best checkup. And what we're going to do is transfer what you wrote down from your 24-hour history, transfer that onto the Live Best checkup. So for example, if you had a scrambled egg this morning for breakfast, make a check mark in the 3rd row, the protein box. You get 1 check mark for the protein box. If you had a piece of toast with breakfast, check off 1 box in the grain group. Cup of yogurt this morning, 1 box in the dairy. If you sliced a banana on that, 1 box in the fruit. So I just want you to take a few minutes and transfer that information onto Live Best Checkup. You'll see some examples of what actually constitutes a serving. I really am not too concerned about that right now. What I really want you to do is just look for trends of where what your food choices are. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. The good news is you do not have to send these in to me. So how'd you do? Are you seeing some goose eggs? Maybe you missed the vegetable group yesterday. Okay, after you wrap up the food, I want you to go to the bottom and do a check mark on the soul food. How did you feed your soul yesterday? Chris mentioned the importance of connection with others. Did you connect with others in a happy or meaningful way yesterday? Check off one of those boxes. Did you laugh with your kids or your wife or husband, spouse? Check one of those boxes. Do you appreciate the sound of the meadowlark as it sings in the spring? If you're like me, check one of those boxes because that's soul food for me. Did you volunteer yesterday? Give some time to others. That's soul food. Did you appreciate the sunset or sunrise? Okay, then move up to on the move on the top right. And just do a quick assessment. Did you do some planned activity within the last 24 hours? So it would have probably been last night or this morning. Okay, now that you've done that, if you have more questions about what constitutes a serving or what fits into a food group, choosemyplate.gov is a good resource to go to. So if there are things on this in this presentation that really grab your interest, just jot it down or take a photo with your phone so that you can go back and refer to it. But this is a good site to figure out what fits in those boxes and how much is a serving. But now I want you to grab your Live Best Goal worksheet. And we're going to be working on this throughout the presentation. I won't stop a lot, but I want you to think about, having looked at your Live Best checkup, where are some areas to improve? What are 3 things you can do to help you feel better to boost your energy? You may find some areas that you want to work on. And if you came up short in a food group, maybe that's going to be your focus. If your soul food was really slim, you may want to tweak that. And if you're not on the move, maybe that's where you want to make some changes. But really what I would like you to do is identify 3, 1 in the area of food, one in the area of activity, and one in your environment. I tend to talk fast, so just scribble notes when you think, aha, there's an idea that I might be able to implement. With setting goals, I found in my work as a nutrition educator that gradual change on a realistic schedule or small steps seems to work better. That gives you, your taste buds, and your brain time to adapt, but you choose the what, the why, and the how in the areas of food, activity, and in the environment. I mentioned small steps, but I also think consistency is the key to achieving and maintaining momentum. And so that's why on the Live Best Goal worksheet, I have it charted out over a week. So over the course of the week, you can measure how you're doing. Feel free to make copies of this if you find this to be a useful tool. But Darren Hardy said, you know, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. So if you don't want to use the worksheet, that's up to you, and that's the excuse you're going to give. I practice tough love, so I'm going to hold you accountable here as we move along. For example, if your vegetable group was short in your Live Best checkup and you think vegetables is what you want to focus on your worksheet, you need to indicate how you're going to make that happen. So rather than just say, I think I'll eat more vegetables, I want to know how you're going to make that happen. Are you going to buy some frozen vegetables so they're in the freezer so they're available at home when you're ready to make dinner? Are you going to bring some broccoli and some baby carrots and keep them in the office fridge so they're available as an afternoon snack? How will you make that happen? Will help you move forward on your Live Best goal worksheet. So as we move into the meat of the presentation, I have a Live Best Energy Reboot tip number 1, and that's appreciation. This is soul food. I love this stuff of positive psychology because our brains are hardwired to perform in a positive state. I asked you if you were feeding your soul, and appreciation is one way to do it. Through laughter, through that sunset, through a feeling of accomplishment, through finishing that brief. There's been some research that looked at people who wrote down 3 good things every day for 1 week. They just took note of them at the end of the day. See, it's really soul food. But what they found is those people felt better about themselves at 1 month, at 3 months, and at 6-month follow-ups. I think that's huge, that within 1 week, we write down 3 things, and 6 months later, we still feel better about ourselves. And what happens is, as we start to notice those things, the good things, we train ourselves to look for the good, so we just get better at seeing it. That gives ourselves a mind shift and helps with the positivity of thinking, positive psychology at work. So maybe your soul food is to appreciate what you have and what you can give to others. Here's an example of something you can do today as we're kicking off Memorial Day this weekend. Maybe you want to plan your best summer ever, and you want to identify 14 things that you're going to do in the 14 weeks of summer to make this your best summer ever, so that when Labor Day comes, you can look back and say, yeah, I did it. I did the things that make me appreciate summer and enjoy the season. Maybe that's what your environmental goal is going to be. Best summer ever. Live Best Reboot tip number 2 is breakfast. And I think breakfast might be your morning drive to Smartville. Our brains take up about only 2 to 3% of our body weight, yet they use 20 to 30% of the calories. Our brain is really an energy hog. And we need to think of our brain kind of like recharging our phones or filling our cars with gas, because after an 8 to 12-hour fast overnight, your brain's low on fuel and it needs energy to reboot. Let's look at how that so breakfast eaters maintain better moods, better weight, plus they have a reduced likelihood of developing some chronic diseases. This is your brain on breakfast. This was some research done on kids, but it applies to us as well. So there were about 40 kids. They were in later elementary school, and they were divided into two groups, those who ate breakfast and those who skipped. The eaters had different neural network activation patterns, and they made fewer errors on the test, which was simple addition. So the breakfast eaters made fewer math errors than the kids who skipped breakfast. The breakfast skippers required more mental effort, and they made more mistakes on those simple addition problems. I want you to think about how this applies to your own work efficiency. Just think about 10 minutes per day lost over a year. 10 minutes a day is about 42 hours. If you're billing at, say, $200 an hour, that's $8,400 in lost efficiency. Do you think breakfast might be your morning drive to flourish? I think it could play an impact on that, so that you are fueling your brain, so that you're starting work with enough energy to be more productive. As a dietitian, I have 3 important ingredients for breakfast. I like high fiber carbohydrates. Your brain likes that too. Fruits and vegetables, and protein. Protein helps balance your blood sugar and helps you keep full longer. So what does that look like when we put those 3 important ingredients together? Here are some breakfast solutions. Again, you can take a photo of this with your camera, or if there's something here that you think just sounds delicious, just jot it down. Breakfast doesn't have to be complicated, but breakfast does need to fuel your brain. So if you only have 2 minutes, toast with a bit of ricotta and some sliced canned peaches, a great way to go. I make baked oatmeal on Sundays, and so that we can portion that out during the week and have it as a very quick breakfast. But I like steel cut oats because they digest more slowly, keeping blood sugar more level and giving us sustained energy throughout the morning. It's just what I do. It helps save time in the morning. And that's what we're all trying to do, is save time and feed ourselves well. So some people want to know, am I going to make them give up coffee at breakfast? And the answer is no way. And there's good news, because the 2015 US Dietary Guidelines actually addressed coffee for the first time. And they said that moderate coffee consumption can fit into a healthy eating pattern. Moderate consumption is 3 to 5 8-ounce cups per day, or up to 400 milligrams a day of caffeine. So an espresso shot has about 64 milligrams, drip about 130-ish, and tea is about 50-ish. Coffee actually provides a lot of antioxidants in the American diet. 1, it's rich in antioxidants, but 2, we drink a lot of it, so overall we're getting a lot of antioxidants from coffee. So you can keep your morning coffee, but you just want to moderate your consumption of that. Live Best Energy Reboot number 2 is about making your fork work for you deliciously. I like FWB, food with benefits. And this roasted cauliflower fettuccine is an example of that. Rather than cream and butter and cheese, I made a white sauce out of low-fat milk, a little bit of flour, and yes, I did use some butter and some cheese, but I lowered it dramatically. I also used the cauliflower stem and stalk in the sauce to give it flavor and body. All of these recipes are available on my website if you're interested in making them at home. But the example here is to show you, you can take a seemingly very rich dish and make it healthier. And when you start playing in the kitchen, you're able to do that. So you get foods with benefits. And the benefit to this roasted cauliflower fettuccine, more vegetables, and lower fat and calories. Fruits and vegetables are superheroes. And I hope that if you were short on your Live Best checkup, that maybe vegetables and fruits are what you might want to consume a little bit more of. But they're really superheroes because the plant compounds that protect plants from their enemies, when we eat those fruits and vegetables, we absorb those compounds. And then they, in turn, strengthen our cells to protect us from our enemies. Our enemies are chronic diseases like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancer, the diseases I mentioned earlier in my family tree. So the benefit of vegetables and fruits is that their protection becomes our protection. I think they're a gold mine of good. And I think with greens, it's kind of like OMG, oh my greens. They really are a gold mine of good. I say green means go. So go fill up your cart with colorful fruits and vegetables, because if they're not in your kitchen or your refrigerator, there's no way they're going to end up on your fork. I like dark green, red, and orange, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. But in the American diet, potatoes and tomatoes are the most commonly consumed vegetables. That comes from ketchup, pizza sauce, and French fries. And I think we can do better than tomatoes and potatoes and stretch ourselves a little bit to include more variety. I think you'd have to be living under a rock to know that vegetables are good for us. If you don't know that, you really haven't been paying attention in the nutrition conversation. Most of us know we need more vegetables. What we struggle with is how to do it so that they taste good or are convenient. Vegetables help reduce inflammation, they lower our cholesterol, and they protect our immune system. But some new research discovered that people who ate fruits and vegetables 6 to 7 times a week reported greater life satisfaction than those who ate fewer. They actually felt better about themselves, and they felt confident in their food choices. So I said I liked green, red, and orange. If I were to run into you at the grocery store, this is what I would like to see in your cart. Some of these fruits and vegetables. These vegetables pack a lot of benefits. Fresh, frozen, canned, and dried all work. I prefer the plain Jane version, not in cream sauce and not with a lot of cheese drizzled over. But these are the vegetables that really do deliver powerful antioxidants. So that's how we power pack our fork. 1 in 10 Americans underconsume vegetables. So again, if your fruit or vegetable Live Best checkup was, you had a goose egg or were falling short in those, these are the fruits and vegetables I'd like to see more of. Doug Larson is a columnist in Wisconsin, and he said that life expectancy would grow by leaps and bounds if green vegetables smelled as good as bacon. I'm not advocating for bacon on everything, but I am advocating for green vegetables. A recent study in neurology reported that people who ate a serving of leafy greens a day maintained sharper cognition as they aged. It actually helps slow cognitive decline by 11 years. So they were looking at 81-year-old folks, about 1,000 people, and they found that those who ate a leafy green a day actually were 11 years younger in their cognition than those who did not eat green vegetables. So there's another reason to do that. Here's what it looks like on your plate. So this red cabbage with sliced oranges. You know, cabbage can tend to be a little bit bitter. So sweeten the pot with slicing an orange on it. It adds a nice refreshing flavor, and it is so easy to put together. You can actually buy cabbage that's already cut, but cutting cabbage isn't that hard. And sprinkling an orange with a little bit of orange juice and maybe some rice wine vinegar on it makes it taste delicious. This Brussels sprout salad, I shaved raw Brussels sprouts in the food processor, sprinkled it with a little Parmesan cheese and some toasted walnuts and a vinaigrette. And what I like about that is, one, it stays fresh. It stays longer when you just shave Brussels sprouts and leave them in a bowl in the refrigerator. It's so super easy to do it in the food processor, but some people don't like cooked cabbage, and so doing it raw just helps people who may otherwise turn up their nose to Brussels sprouts to enjoy them. The photo on the upper right, I've sliced. I want to make sure sorry about that. Yeah, I sliced it. I had one avocado and one grapefruit, and sliced that into a salad. That's a good way to use what's on hand. One grapefruit can then serve 4 or 6 people, and so can one avocado. Roasted cauliflower with Parmesan. The trick to roasting vegetables is to get the pan hot. So when you're heating the oven, put your baking sheet in the oven and get it hot as the oven preheats. You prep the vegetables, and you can even buy them already cut and ready to go. I drizzle with maybe a teaspoon of olive oil, and then when that pan is hot, I pull it out and carefully pour the vegetables on that pan. You'll hear a sizzle. That's the caramelization. That speeds up the cooking so dinner gets on the table quicker, but it also makes it taste really delicious. Sprinkle it with a little Parmesan, and when I'm talking little, I'm saying maybe a tablespoon of Parmesan, just a little bit. Makes it taste even yummier. Blending vegetables into a soup, chopping them into a salsa, or this peanut Asian rice bowl. I used convenience foods to make this dinner in less than 10 minutes. And the way I did it is I bought pre-cooked rice. You heat that in the microwave for, I think, a minute. I used frozen vegetables that I sauteed, and then I sprinkled over some chopped peanuts and a little bottled peanut sauce. I know some of you who reached out to me said you really struggle with long hours and dinner gets derailed because you get home so late. This is a perfect way to solve that problem. But again, you have to plan ahead and have these things on hand. So maybe your environmental goal is to make a grocery list that has some of these foods on it, so you're ready to go. So I talk a lot about fiber, and what I want you to do now is take a look at your Live Best checkup and see how you're doing on your fiber consumption. Fiber is really important in preventing chronic disease. It helps us feel full longer. It makes our trips to the bathroom quicker, but it also helps reduce the risk of diabetes and heart disease. Women need about 25 grams of fiber a day, and men need about 38 grams of fiber a day. So pull out that Live Best checkup and do a fiber calculation to see how you're doing on your fiber. You'll see beans are up there. A half a cup of beans is 8 grams. If you add beans on your Live Best checkup and your 24-hour food recall, I'm going to give you a high five for that. Just a few minutes right now for you to do that self-assessment. You'll find fiber in the vegetable, the fruit, grains if you're eating whole grains, and in some protein sources. Animal products don't have fiber. Most Americans get about half of the fiber recommendation than what is recommended. So my food choices tend to be fiber focused because I try to get more fiber in them. And those vegetables that I showed you on this previous slide, fiber sources. Okay, here we are for a soul food, laughter. Maybe you need to turn that frown upside down and to turn it into a smile, because it's really hard to feel down when you're laughing. It's such a mood booster. And I really think we lose our ability to laugh when we get older. Maybe you need to look at funny cat videos to find your humor, or just hang out with a fun friend is one way to boost your soul food and boost your laughter. Now let's move on to some protein food recommendations. Protein foods really provide sustained energy. They help you feel full longer. They build and retain muscle. They repair muscle and bone mass, and they minimize muscle loss as we age. Protein recommendations have changed a little bit in recent years, and what we're trying to encourage people to do is to spread their protein intake throughout the day. As Americans, we tend to get most of our protein in our evening meal, but if we can front load our day with a little bit more protein, we really stabilize hunger hormones and give more satiety to help fuel us throughout the day. Also, we can only digest and absorb so much protein. So by spreading it out throughout the day, we're giving our muscles and our bones the ability to repair by feeding them the amino acids or the proteins that they need throughout the day. So here's an example with this flank steak. I turned it into a salad with oranges, avocados, and tomato. Just layered that over a salad. It was the way I repurposed a flank steak. It's about a 3-ounce portion, but that becomes pretty satisfying when you combine your meat, chicken, fish, whatever, with a salad. It's a nice way to extend it, but it's also a good way to boost fiber and spread that protein throughout the day. So here's another quick assessment with your Live Best checkup. What does 25 grams translate to your plate? And I want you to do a checkup right now to see how you're spreading your protein throughout the day. We get most of our richer sources of protein come from animal products: beef, tuna, yogurt, milk, eggs. But peanut butter and beans, nuts and seeds are also pretty good sources. 25 grams, how does that translate to your plate? The recommendation is that we're looking at maybe 25 to 30 grams per meal throughout the day. I'm not telling you to eat a whole lot more protein. I'm telling you to spread it out throughout the day. Here's what we can do for for protein at breakfast, talking about spreading it out throughout the day. So this may be one you want to snap with your camera. I don't need to read all these. I just want to give you some examples of what it looks like. How did you do this morning with your breakfast? Do you think you got enough protein? You really have to think about it. The hard-cooked egg here is something I've started to incorporate, one, when I travel, but two, at home. And I have an Instant Pot, and oh my goodness, does that make cooking eggs fast and easy, and the shells just slide right off. Okay, I'm going to move on here to another protein source, is fish. And this is a food that we tend to underconsume. The recommendations is that we eat about 8 ounces per week of fish. And I'm talking about grilled or baked fish, not fried fish. But fish has a type of fat in it called omega-3. Omega-3 fats build better brain cells. They are really a healthier fat for our cells, for our blood. the benefit of omega-3 fats is that they make our blood a little less sticky so that we're less likely to develop plaques in our arteries. But fish eaters also suffer less depression and mood disorders. In fact, the American Psychiatric Association said that omega-3s were important when treating depression. And populations that eat more fish tend to suffer fewer mental problems. So, I think that's something to think about. If you suffer from depression or the moody blues, incorporating more fish might be a way to help you offset some of that. The fish that swim in cold waters are the fish that deliver the greatest amount of omega-3s. So that would be like wild salmon or sockeye salmon, anchovies, sardines, albacore, or skipjack tuna. Don't turn your nose up on anchovies. That's a nice way to add a flavor bomb when you're cooking. And in fact, this pasta puttanesca on the right has anchovies in the tomato sauce. And I just melt them in as I'm starting to saute some of the vegetables for pasta puttanesca. It's a really quick dish to put on the table, but that's one way I incorporate anchovies. I also love an anchovy pizza. But try to think about ways that you can work in fish into your diet. A fish taco is an easy way to do that. You can bake or grill fish and then add it to a shell. This recipe, I've used yogurt to make the crema instead of sour cream. I pickled red onions and sliced red cabbage. And those fish tacos get on the table in about 30 minutes. So that's a pretty quick to fix dinner that has a ton of power on the fork. On the top, that's some flounder that I added to a salad. So just another quick way to incorporate some fish into your diet. So when I say go fish, I'm really encouraging you to incorporate more fish into your diet. And then beans are another food that we get so many health benefits from. And beans really are a shopper's dream because they're inexpensive. The canned beans are fine. You just rinse them. By rinsing beans, you reduce the sodium by about 40%. But I make a bean dip almost every couple of weeks that I use for snacks, but I also will eat that for lunch. I make a white bean dip. This picture here is my white bean dip. Sometimes if I have leftover beans, I'll add them to a smoothie in the morning. Think about a white bean chicken chili. Anytime you make chili or a taco filling, add canned beans to that to increase your fiber, lowers the fat, and it's just a really health-promoting food. So I know a lot of people struggle with beans, but they really are a great asset in the kitchen. They're inexpensive, they store well, and they're a good source of fiber and protein. Beans are also good for our gut health. So our gut microbiome really likes beans. So try to incorporate a few more beans. Maybe that's going to be your food goal for your Live Best goal sheet. Are you nuts? I hope so, because nuts are a combination of healthy fats, protein, and fiber, and they help you stay full longer. They also have some health-promoting benefits with keeping our arteries flexible. The Almond Board did a study and found that Americans reach for a snack at 2:58 p.m., close to 3 p.m., but I find that a handful of walnuts really do keep me out of the cookie jar. And so that's a great way to have a measured snack in the afternoon. And that extra protein will help keep you full through the afternoon and into dinner. I'm talking about a handful of nuts, not a bag full. I'm also talking not about chocolate-coated nuts or honey-roasted nuts, but kind of the plain Jane version. These chai walnuts, this recipe is on my website. I've mixed them with a little bit of sweetener, but also some spices. I use a lot of spices because they have great antioxidant properties. So a lot of the recipes I develop have spices in them just for the health benefits that they provide. when we add more spices to our food, we're also less likely to add more salt. So spices can help in that arena. Moving on into the dairy group, you know, I think good things come in threes, and 3 servings of dairy is recommended a day. And it's because of the calcium, the potassium, and the magnesium that dairy foods provide. These 3 vitamins and minerals are what contribute to lowering our risk of high blood pressure, diabetes, and colon cancer. Dairy is rich in protein, and many of dairy is fortified with vitamin D, so it's a friend to our bones and our muscles. There's a variety of fat levels, and recently there's been research about dairy fat where we're thinking that it may not be as detrimental as it once was, but I think you need to look at it as how many calories can you afford. I drink 1% milk, I eat full-fat cheese, but I eat other, like cottage cheese, I'll get reduced fat. Yogurt, I'll get full fat. So what I'm trying to do there is balance out my calories, but also that fat provides some satiety, so it's going to keep me full longer. So I want you, when you shop for your dairy choices, think about calories as much as satiety. Dairy is a good source of protein, and so so that's another way. If you're trying to stretch your protein out throughout the day, think about you know, a cup of yogurt, a cup of milk, and see how that might work into some of those protein solutions, as I showed you earlier. In the dairy aisle, you need to compare labels. There are a lot of other beverages. We see almond milk, coconut milk, hemp, pea, and soy in the competing against dairy milk. Soy is the closest equivalent to dairy milk, and so I want you to read the labels to make sure you are getting what you need and want in order to avoid the unintended health consequences. The calcium, the potassium, and the magnesium you're going to find most in dairy milk, cow's milk. You'll find some of those in soy. But those 2 are the, I guess, the nutritional superstars. Almond milk is much lower in protein, and it's often fortified with some vitamins and minerals, but it's not going to give you the protein that you need. So that's just my little thing on dairy. But let's look at how we're going to incorporate it in to your diet. Yogurt on French toast. I rarely eat. I cannot remember the last time I poured syrup on French toast or pancakes, because I always spoon on plain yogurt and top it with berries. I'm a plain yogurt gal because I'm trying to reduce added sugars, and I can sweeten plain yogurt to my taste better than what I can find from the sweetened yogurt in the grocery store. So plain yogurt is the way I go. Orange cranberry tart. This is recipes on my website. This is a breakfast tart. It really looks like pie for breakfast, but that filling is yogurt and eggs baked into a cornflake crust and topped with cranberries there. I mentioned the fish tacos with that yogurt crema. I chopped up a chipotle pepper into that into the yogurt and gave it the spiciness I was looking for. Mozzarella, this is such an easy salad. Mozzarella is a low-fat cheese. I used canned peaches and fresh basil to make a salad. This would be perfect to take to work and, you know, a make-ahead salad. Walnut mushroom lasagna rolls, I've used, there's no meat in this, but I've used ricotta cheese as the filling. And then cottage cheese, berries, and nuts. I drizzled that with a little honey. That looks like the breakfast I had this morning, except I swapped out mango for the berries. So those are some ways to work in some deliciousness in dairy. And this is how I start every morning, is with a cappuccino. I mentioned coffee, moderation. I have one a day. It's one of the ways I enjoy my milk, because I know I'm feeding my muscles and not my bones. And I we start every morning with a cappuccino that my husband makes, and this really is a pleasurable moment for both of us. So enjoying your food or the setting that you're eating it in is soul food to me. So I just really encourage you to don't miss the moment, be it a warm cup of coffee or a great bite of food, a compliment or a smile. That's soul food. Moving through these food groups, we're now on whole grains. You know, the University of Nebraska is doing a lot of good research on whole grains, and the benefits of whole grains are that they have been linked to a reduction in systemic inflammation, which reduces our risk of chronic diseases. Whole grains provide a natural cleanse, and they can alter the gut bacteria. And that's what they're finding at the University of Nebraska, is that folks who ate whole grains, even for 2 weeks, they swapped out refined white flour for whole grains. They altered their gut bacteria in just 2 weeks. So you might want to look close to home and see what's going on in the research in Nebraska. But those are the benefits of whole grains. Here I've made oatmeal with almonds, bananas, and a scoop of a little dollop of plain yogurt. So let's look at some ways. Oh yeah, if you're eating a whole grain toast, you're not eating a donut. And that's such a simple swap to incorporate whole grains. Here's some other ways to do it. Beef barley soup, adding barley in adds fiber, but also a whole grain. This smoothie, I've added amaranth to. I also add, sometimes I'll add oatmeal, raw oatmeal to a smoothie when I blend it, because I like the whole grain, but I like the fiber and the protein I get from that. So that smoothie is cherry with a little bit of cocoa and some cinnamon, yogurt, milk, and amaranth. A vegetable quinoa soup. Quinoa is a whole grain that's really quick to cook, and adding it to soups will boost the protein and the fiber. Bulgur salad. Bulgur is an interesting grain because it doesn't even require cooking. You just soak it in water for a couple of hours and then add in what you want to. This past week, I made bulgur. I added chopped fresh strawberries because they're in season now. So I added strawberries and cucumber, and then made a quick little vinaigrette to pour over it. I have some mint growing in the garden, so I tossed that in, and it was a really delicious salad. Very easy to do, no cooking required. Berry cardamom baked oatmeal. I told you I bake oatmeal usually on a Sunday because it's a way to make the morning easier, but it's an easy way to get more whole grains into my diet. And then I mentioned the toast. This is spread with ricotta and some sliced kiwi. So I mentioned I eat plain yogurt, and that I try to cut down on added sugars. I don't think I'm alone in trying to do that. I think a lot of Americans are trying to cut down on added sugars right now. We're going to see labeling change. The nutrition facts panels on packaged foods in the grocery store will now have added sugars added to that label. But with sugar substitutes, the available evidence indicates that sugar substitutes are safe. If you're using a lot of them, though, I think that means you need to look at your diet, because maybe your diet's on the unhealthy side. For example, if you're getting a quarter pounder with cheese and fries and then ordering a Diet Coke, that Diet Coke is not going to offset all those extra calories from the quarter pounder with cheese. You know, if you really enjoy a carbonated beverage and you want to have that, I say fine. But if every meal you're having artificially sweetened foods, I think you just need to look at that and maybe do your diet tweak there. Sugar has 16 calories per teaspoon. So adding a teaspoon of sugar to your coffee is not a real rich calorie load. But if everything you're buying is artificially sweetened, I would take a look at that and probably do some tweaks there. What the research is finding with sugar substitutes is that you may be eating more fat and protein because you're not really tasting the sugar. Sugar substitutes may cause some taste distortion that lead to an increased appetite for more sweet foods and more high-calorie foods. People who eat sugar substitute foods often think they're saving calories, so then reward themselves with those saved calories. I think that kind of applies to that quarter pounder and fries example. And sugar substitutes may alter the gut microbiome, and it may increase fat production. All of these are research areas that are being studied now, but the consensus is that sugar substitutes are safe. I bring this slide up because that was a question that was asked in the in you guys preparing for this, for attending this webinar. In all of the food choices, though, I say, you know, more doesn't taste better. It's just more. And I think what we need to look at sometimes is, why are we making the food choices we're doing? Are we hungry? Are we angry? Are we lonely? Are we tired? And when you apply this HALT analogy to food choices, sometimes we're eating because, not really because we're hungry, we're trying to soothe something. Because if hunger isn't the problem, food isn't the solution. A sleeve of cookies is not going to give you a hug. And if you're really hungry, an apple should taste delicious. So more doesn't taste better, it's just more. Alcohol applies to that. More isn't better, it's just more. What are the recommendations for alcohol? For women, 1 drink a day. Men, 2 drinks a day. That is due to the fact that men have generally more lean body mass than women, and they're able to process alcohol better. As we age, we don't process alcohol better. Just a fact of life, but what is a serving? A serving is 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, and 1.5 ounces of an 80 proof spirit. The 1 drink per day for women doesn't mean I can bank that for the weekend and have 7 on Saturday. It really is spread out over the week. One a day for women, 2 for men. And like I said, more doesn't taste better, it's just more. I'm going to pause for just a second to see if we have any questions. Any questions coming in, Chris? I think Chris might be muted.
Elisa, I think Elisa is seeing our question feed. Don't think she has anything at the moment. Just
Okay.
Go ahead. We'll see what we got.
Okay, very good. Thanks. So Live Best Energy Reboot tip number 4 is your environment working for you or against you? Again, you might find something here that you want to apply on your Live Best goal worksheet. How to optimize your workplace. I think sometimes the office is like, you know, a death trap for healthier living and healthier eating. So I think as a philosophy within the office, maybe you could discourage emphasis on sweet celebrations. I have stopped sending baked goods to the office because I know they don't need them any more than we need them. So think about maybe a fruit basket with whole fruit for your celebrations. Maybe a nice platter of roasted nuts with dried fruit. Yogurt parfaits with fruit and granola, or a cheese and vegetable tray. Think about a big copper bowl filled with a variety of apples or fresh grapes, strawberries or tangerines, deviled eggs, or maybe a tea tasting for one of the celebrations if it's somebody's birthday. If it's somebody's birthday, maybe you want to celebrate birthdays all at the first of the month rather than every week somebody's birthday, so that you're having cake less, or you're trying to de-emphasize sweet celebrations, and using one of these examples. If you're ordering in for staff meetings or you have clients that are there all day long, keep some healthy menus available. So when you're ordering out for food to bring in, you have some choices available. Maybe you want to take your meetings on foot sometimes. And if you have root beer float days in the summer, I'm not opposed to those at all, but maybe you want to mini size them. So you're serving them in a smaller cup, or maybe sub in frozen yogurt and berries for those root beer floats instead. There are ways to optimize your workplace. And Chris talked about rising healthcare costs and insurance. And I think by setting a philosophy within the office that the demands that you're taking healthcare seriously, these are good ways to model that. I mean, who wouldn't want a basket of fruit that's that beautiful? When we travel, especially, I'm kind of addressing the litigators here, it's not vacation. So when you travel, maybe you want to set up your environment so that it's a little bit cleaner. Maybe it's alcohol-free. Maybe when you travel, you say, I'm just not going to order desserts. Maybe you're ordering the healthier breakfast. I think all the major hotels have really tried to bump up their healthier breakfast options to fuel your day in a high protein, higher fiber way. Maybe you want to cut back on making dinner a little bit leaner. But you also want to get outside, pack your tennis shoes and get outside so you can take a walk, even around the block of the hotel. Traveling can be difficult, but we are seeing more and more choices that make it easier to make better choices. Here's helping you with being a better menu sleuth and eating out. The descriptions on the left, steamed, grilled, broiled, baked, those tend to be a healthier, focused food preparation, where those on the right, crispy, creamy, cheesy, buttered sauce or batter dipped, those tend to be a red flag for higher fat, higher calorie items. Just saying, when you're ordering out, what you might want to look for. You can always ask for grilled or broiled, or on a menu. Rather than saying, what's the healthiest item, you might want to ask, what's the freshest item on the menu? Have you seen this lunch? I hope not, but I think microwave popcorn is like the most ubiquitous aroma in an office anymore. So when you are eating on the run, here's some fast food solutions. This again is another camera snap for some ideas. What you can eat or choose at a fast food restaurant. What I tried to do here is to just give some variety with restaurants that are fairly ubiquitous. And you'll even notice Dunkin' Donuts. I put an egg white flatbread down there. So if you're meeting friends at a donut shop, you have something to order. I'm going to give you just a minute to scan that to see if there is something you can say yes to for lunch. Okay, here's some snack solutions. Things you might want to pack in your briefcase when you're traveling. Things you might want to put in your desk drawer or in the office fridge. To think about having on hand to help you meet your food group objectives, to help you bump up your protein and your fiber, and to taste delicious. One of my go-to afternoon snacks, almonds and dried apricots, or an apple that I spread a little almond or peanut butter on. Those are two of my go-to afternoon snacks. So here are some C-store solutions. So when you're driving across the state because you have depositions, you're going to fill up the car with gas. What can you eat from a gas station or a convenience store? dried beets. I don't know if you've seen those. That's the one on the lower right. I'm loving some dried beets right now. They come in a bag. They're a little bit on the expensive side, but they really are delicious. Much better for you than a potato chip. But they're a baked beet. A little bit of seasoning on them. So these are some snacks that I pack when I go, and I think that RX bar up in the upper left, I really am enjoying these right now. I keep them in my briefcase. I travel quite a bit, and they're pretty rich in protein, and they're pretty high in fiber. And they have saved me when I was running through an airport with no time to stop for a bite to eat. This RX bar is a solution that I found to be pretty valuable. The apple in the middle, I usually start my trip with a Ziploc bag and some sliced apples, so I can nibble on that on the plane, and then I don't have to get the stroopwafel, nor do I get the pretzels. I have my own snack, and it's usually the apple. I have an RX bar, and I also have a Ziploc bag with dried fruit and nuts in it. And that goes with me almost every time I travel. I have a water bottle that I pack in my briefcase and fill once I get through TSA. So moving on to another soul food is order. And you know, it's really hard to feel calm and accomplished when things are out of order. Here I've ordered my spice cabinet because spices can be an ally in healthier cooking, but maybe you want to order your desk so that you can find the files you're looking for. Maybe you want to order your shoes at home or clean out a junk drawer. Order really is soul food because it calms you. So maybe that is going to be your environmental goal for this 3-day weekend, is to tackle something. Here's a productivity hack that I use, and it's kind of on the sense of order, and that is ordering my time. I like to prioritize 3 things that I'm going to do in the day, but I establish a power hour, and I set the timer on my phone for 60 minutes, and I sit down with no phone, no email that I'm going to check, no social media, no interruptions. I focus for 1 hour, and I am always amazed at how much work I actually get done when I am truly focused on that. My husband's adopted that pattern at work, and I think by letting your assistants know you're not taking interruptions for 1 hour, you can really make a big difference in your productivity at work, which orders your brain, because then you are able to check something off of your to-do list and feel more satisfied with that. Okay, we're moving on to Live Best Energy Reboot number 5. I think a good pair of shoes with you in them may be the secret to your reboot and aging well and being fit to practice. Physical activity is a profound one-stop energy shop. I asked you on your Live Best checkup if you made your heart pound. And the reason I did that is because during aerobic activity, you move large muscles in your arms, your legs, and your hips. You breathe faster and more deeply. You bring more oxygen into your blood. Your heart beats faster and increases your blood flow. You release endorphins so that you have an increased sense of well-being. So with all that, you've increased your stamina, you keep your arteries clear, you burn calories, and you strengthen your heart. That sounds pretty darn good. I also asked you, though, if you were doing strength training. That would be like push-ups or resistance bands or lifting weights. That provides mechanical stress, which helps develop your muscle and your bone strength. So that increases your bone density. Plus this other laundry list of benefits that you get from physical activity. We like those benefits, and here's why. Which leg would you want to carry you through life? These are the cross sections of 2 thighs, one from a 28-year-old and one from an 80-year-old. In our 30s, we start to lose muscle as we age. about 1 to 2% per year. And that slows down our metabolism, which causes slow weight gain. That's what causes middle-age spread. That's when chronic diseases start showing up. So by increasing our lean muscle mass, we're able to play with our kids, play with our grandkids, travel, lift our suitcase into the overhead bin, get off the toilet. So many benefits from having this leg up. Because the more fat you have in your muscle, the less strength and mobility you have. That's why we like physical activity. Chris mentioned this in the intro about that we're sitting so much. And when you're in the knowledge business, as you are, you really have to plan to move because we spend so much time in our chairs. Americans are spending most of their waking hours sitting. Sitting is really becoming, or standing is becoming the new black. But we've engineered activity out of our day because we really don't have to do anything anymore. We don't open a garage door. We don't change a TV channel. We don't answer the phone that used to hang on the wall. We sit. So we need to really work at standing. I am standing right now as I deliver this webinar because I have a standing desk, and I have found that that engages my muscles more when than when I'm sitting, and it really does use more energy because it calls our cells into action. So I'm going to ask you not if you're going to incorporate more activity, but how you're going to do it. And that's why you have one goal devoted to physical activity. This chart at the top, 0 to 5,000, these are the number of steps that we record. I'm sure most of you are aware of Fitbits or Apple Watches or Garmin's that track our steps. If you're in the 0 to 5,000 range, that's considered sedentary. If you're in the 10,000 to 12,500, that's considered active. I know most recommendations say strive for 10,000 steps, but you need to start where you are. I do find that these tracking devices help motivate people to move more because when we measure something, we're more likely to pay attention to it. So if you're in the 5,000 range, your goal should be to increase that. Increase it over the course of a week, and then increase it the next week. But don't go from 5 to 10,000 overnight. I think that's just a little bit too stringent and too aggressive. But you do want to increase. And here's an example of what happens. Say that you sign up for an exercise class on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Tuesday you miss it because you have a hair appointment. And then Thursday you miss it because you have a client come in. Most people don't make up for that lost activity. You just wait till next week and kind of blow it off. But if you train yourself to stand while you're on a webinar, or stand while you're on the phone, walk when your kids are at practice, then overall you're sitting less and you're moving more, which increases your fitness level because it is calling those cells into action. So walking the dog, parking the car farther away from the store, and then actually returning the cart to the grocery store, not just the cart collection area. Keeping water at your desk so you get up to fill it, or that you go to the bathroom on a different floor. Those are ways you can start to incorporate more physical activity into your day without really thinking too hard about it. I mentioned walking the dog. This is my dog, Bo. I walk him every morning, and he nudges me to make sure that we're going to do that. Movement is so powerful, and it is soul food. People who own dogs, though, actually do get more physical activity because of the persistence, like Bo does me, where he nudges me to walk in the morning. Activity ignites your brain. Several studies have found that aerobic exercise increases the ability to plan or make decisions. to help us stay focused, hold information, and correct errors. Let's take a look at it here with this slide. These were a group of students that were being tested for math, spelling, and reading. And the group on the left, this is a composite of their brain. These are the kids that had their brain scanned after sitting quietly. The group on the right had their brain scanned after a 20-minute walk. Well, where that red is where the brain is really active. The blue, it's less active. So what he found in this research by Chuck Hillman is that the fittest bodies had the fittest brains. And those kids with the red who went on the walk tested higher in math, reading, and spelling. So that's the proof in the brain that our brains really do function better with activity. I love this slide because in the late 1800s, a German philosopher said all truly great thoughts are conceived by walking. In 2014, researchers at Stanford confirmed that, and they supported that, and they said that people who walk are more creative. You can walk yourself to a new perspective because the more we move, the better our brains work. Getting outside in nature helps us do that. People who walk outside actually produce more novel thoughts. That's also soul food when we get outside. But more activity really helps you have a more nimble mind to meet your client needs. You can brainstorm solutions to client problems. You can deal with clients, phone calls, emails, and deadlines better when you've been active. It gives you energy and novel thoughts in taking a deposition, conducting a cross-examination, and even in drafting a contract. So physical activity can really help that nimble mind meet those client needs better. I think excuses are the #1 reason people don't exercise. So I'm going to help you excuse-proof your physical activity. I'm going to start with a story about my husband. So he struggled trying to fit physical activity in. And so he decided with a lawyer friend, they were going to meet and go to the gym, work out for an hour. Then that included lunch and changing clothes and retying ties. And it quickly became that wasn't going to work for their busy schedules. So exercise fell by the wayside. Well, one morning, my husband, Ken, was sitting in his bathroom on the edge of the tub with his electric razor, shaving, waking up. And he tells this story and he jokes. It would take him 15 minutes to just kind of come to life in the morning. And he had a mindset and he said, you know, I need to be active. I'm going to do it in the morning. And I have always been a morning workout gal. And he started to join me in my DVD that I play on TV to do exercise. It changed his whole life because now he can fit in fitness before he goes to the office. We set the alarm a little bit earlier so we make it happen. We don't try to fit in going to the gym because that didn't work. And we have a buddy. We are each other's support system and accountability partner to make it happen. He does that 5 days a week, and he even wanted me to tell you so he could support you in your efforts in trying to find a solution. But if you find you have no time, maybe you need to tie your activity to other things you're doing, like walking to the courthouse or taking the stairs in the office. Restructure your morning like Ken did. If you're going to meet a friend for coffee on Saturday, maybe meet for a walk instead. If you really don't like it, a buddy helps, an accountability partner, and also find something that you like to do. Because the number of people who tell me they're going to start swimming, but a pool is not accessible or they don't like to get their hair wet, is not a reasonable solution. So find something that you like to do. If you're too tired, you will find that exercise gives you energy. If you have no place to do it, think creatively. We work out in our living room. If it's too hot, you might need to head inside, live stream something, or get a DVD. Try to excuse-proof your activity. Really, no one ever said, I wish I hadn't exercised. So our Live Best Reboot tip number 5 is about sleep. Dream a little dream. You know, the CDC considers insufficient sleep a public health epidemic. And when you establish a routine, you do a lot better to establish a routine, maintaining regular bed and wake times, turning off, tuning out, powering down, saying yes to exercise and no to nightcaps, using the doghouse to get the pets out of the room, and eating early. Those are all ways to get better sleep and more activity, or better sleep so that you'll fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Eating early is important because what it does is our bodies heat up as we digest food. And when we eat a little bit earlier, it gives us time to digest that food and keep our body temperature a little bit cooler. Calling Mr. Sandman. It used to be you snooze, you lose, but calling Mr. Sandman is what I'd rather have you do, because when we sleep, our brain shrinks by about 60%, opening up channels to allow the debris from firing all day long to flush away. So it really allows our brain to catch its breath, to download, upload, reboot, and sweep away all those toxins. That also helps with weight control, because it seems that when we're better rested, we consume fewer calories because our hunger hormones refresh during sleep. I know a lawyer's time and trade are his time and advice are his stock in trade. Abraham Lincoln said that, and I know it's true. But I also know that the things that renew us are usually the first things we eliminate: healthier eating, sleep, and physical activity. Because we're just trying to save time. And trying to save time is doing the worst thing for our health with that healthier eating, exercise, and sleep. To quote Dr. Seuss, he says, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. So I ask you, if you're ready to press play and to move forward in being fit to practice. This last soul food is to look in the mirror. It's a note to yourself to make yourself a priority. I give you permission to take care of and enjoy yourself. We've heard it on the plane, put our own oxygen mask on first, and that's what we're talking about. As we wrap things up, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Again, I invite you to visit my website if you find recipes that you would be interested in trying. I also have a shopping list and kitchen equipment list there if you're interested in that. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of the conversation, and we'll turn it over to Chris.
We do have one question
Okay.
on the board here, if you could hold on. It asks, what are your thoughts about standing or variable position desks? I think you talked about that a little bit, but what's kind of the latest research on that? Is standing really, you know, the solution? Does it have some benefits? Is it as good as moving around, or can you give us some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think standing is good. Moving is good too. I mean, you don't want to stand like a statue at your desk. You do need to move your legs and get the blood flowing. But when you're standing, you are calling your muscles into action versus when you're sitting. So I actually use both. When I'll move my computer over to my sit-down desk for some projects and move it up on my stand-up desk for others. But you do still need to get your legs moving and get the blood flowing.
Okay, and then I have a question, and maybe you covered this and I missed it, but is there, there's kind of at least in the eating healthy world, the thought that like multiple kind of smaller meals is better than the kind of the old thought of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Any thoughts around like 5 meals versus 5 small meals versus 3 normal size meals or anything in that area?
Yeah, I did not address that, Chris. It's a good question. And I think the research is mixed on that. And here's why. Some people are turning 6 meals into eating all day long and getting too many calories. So if you're stretching your meals out like that, you really need to pay attention to portion size and calories. There's also it's kind of popular right now is intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting is not eating for longer periods of time, for say 10 hours. Now we do that fast overnight. The research, but to do it during the day when our brain really needs to function can be a challenge to do intermittent fasting. There has been some research done though that when we do fast like that, we're not getting blood sugar spikes because we're not eating all the time. And there may be some benefit to that in weight control. I don't think the research is in right now on the definitive answer on that, but we do know when we eat a lot throughout the day, our blood sugar is going up and going down, going up, going down. And so there could be some detriment to that, but we don't quite know the answer yet.
Okay, and then you covered some kind of healthy meal choices as we're maybe traveling or have to grab a quick lunch during a work day, and some great examples of in almost any location you can maybe find something that's going to be fit within the parameters of what you recommend. Is there a good resource, particularly maybe on our phone, that we can utilize to when we look at a particular restaurant to decide what's maybe healthy at that given restaurant?
App?
Is there an app or anything like that out there?
Yeah, I think, oh gosh, I don't know an app that's general for all restaurants, but I do know when you, so restaurants, most restaurants have nutrition information posted, or they have it on their website. And, I think a good example is a salad. When you go into McDonald's, you might think, oh, all the salads are healthier. Well, that's not really true. Some of them have a lot more calories than other salads. And so you can look at the nutrition information that's posted either on the menu or on their website, or often they post it as a poster in the restaurant. So you can compare calories within a category. So you can look at the salads that are listed on the menu and see how many calories they're getting. But I don't know of an app. I don't know of an app right now off the top of my head to go to that would have all of the restaurants listed.
Okay.
Okay. So what I did when I was putting together that slide of the restaurant recommendations that I would consider, I went on a lot of their websites to look at what are some of their fresher, healthier choices. Restaurants, they want you to come and eat. And so, and they know there is a health focus from a lot of people. So often they're calling out their more health-focused menus to get you in the door. And I think paying attention to those, but evaluating is a good idea. And a lot of these restaurants now you can choose online. So like Taco Bell has a power menu that you can pre-order online and add or take away items and then order online. I think Jimmy John's also had that option, and one other restaurant had that option where you can pre-order online. And that's a really smart weight control strategy, is to go ahead and order ahead of time, or think about what you want to order before you get there, so that you're not drawn into the, you know, fried mozzarella sticks and the chips and the salsa once you get there. But if you've given some thought ahead of time to what you're going to order, you're better in control of ordering. But I'm sorry, I don't know of an app.
Hey Judy, this is Amy. I know that you did talk a little bit about fad diets, but you see a lot with the keto and the Atkins and the Whole30. And do you have any opinion on whether or not moving to a one of those ways of eating is helpful or more healthy than just doing everything in moderation?
How much time do we have, Amy?
You have about 5 minutes.
I say that with a little bit tongue in cheek. I can't keep up with all the diets that are out there. And sometimes I even struggle with what they mean. So I had a woman tell me she was a part-time vegan. And I just have to roll my eyes. I don't know what a part-time vegan is. I think that can be applied to the Live Best checkup that we just did. The keto diet is actually a diet that was designed to control seizures long time ago. And it's just resurfaced as what I would consider a fad diet. It's very fat focused. So there are not carbohydrates to feed your brain. It can work in weight loss, but it's really hard to follow. And when I talk about eating out because you're traveling or you're going to people's houses, it's really hard to follow. And the thing about diets like that is they become something we do, and then it's something we don't do. So we go on this diet, and then we go off the diet. Well, to me, that's not really sustainable. If it's trying to feed your energy, or if it's trying to maintain, you know, reduction of chronic diseases, what can you really do in the long term? And so that's why I know moderation isn't sexy. It's certainly not as sexy as Whole30, but it's also, I just come at it from a prevention of chronic diseases, my family tree, soul food, what's pleasurable, but also what's sustainable. And so I think those diets really become a thing to go on and then a thing to go off. And so to me, diets are not a sustainable thing, lifestyle. Having said that, there are some great paleo recipes, some great Whole30 recipes that you can incorporate into a diet. Maybe that's what part-time veganism is, you know, incorporating it part-time.
Great. Well, we appreciate that answer, and I recognize there is so many of the diets out there, and they may, you know, like you said, they may be appropriate in certain circumstances, but you know, I think the interesting thing is the kind of new fad diet after new fad diet kind of comes forward, and if they really worked, we wouldn't keep needing new ones. And so it seems like they reinvent them because, you know, in the long run, a lot of them maybe don't provide the benefit people hope they would. So
yeah, and they make a lot of money when they come out. You know what? I'm not making that kind of money, but because I'm not succumbing to a fad diet like that. But here's the thing: diet can't bear the burden of a healthful lifestyle, and you have to incorporate physical activity. And you know, the people who reached out to me before this webinar, when we asked for what are their obstacles, they struggle with time management, which I called self-management, to get physical activity in their day and to get a healthy meal on the table. And that's where I would rather have people focus their energy than trying to read 6 books on a fad diet and you know, trying to make that work.
really helpful presentation today. Really appreciate it. And I think people have been given your, how to get in contact with you through either your website or email if they have follow-up questions. So thank you again. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, Chris and Amy, and all of you in Nebraska. I laughed when we set the time of this of, oh my gosh, that's a lot of listening to Judy Barbe talk, but I really tried to focus on solutions to help you be fit to practice, because my overall goal and mission is making it okay to eat and, trimming those family trees so that we're all healthier. So I hope I gave you some tools to do that, and challenge you with your Live Best checkup to, make it work for you. And the Live Best goal worksheet to really identify some small steps, some changes that you can do so that we're all moving in the right direction to live healthier, happier, and stronger. But thank you so much.
Great, thank you. So for the remaining about 15 minutes or so, 14 minutes we have, we will end, I think, right about on time. I'm going to do a brief overview of some work being done within our profession around overall attorney wellness. This is going to be a broader category than what we talked about, in terms of nutrition and sleep and activity, but this will also encompass those as well as, the more significant issues we're seeing within our profession, and recommendations that have been put together for all of us to start to effectuate some change. And quite frankly, that change is already occurring. And I'll talk a little bit about that, of how it's happening and how, people on this call can get involved. So in 2017, about a year ago, a task force report was published by the ABA, and it was called Path to Lawyer Wellbeing, Practical Recommendations for Positive Change. And I can tell you that task force was put together as a result of some surveys that had been done about the overall kind of mental health of our profession and just the general well-being of our profession that were published in 2016. The ABA said, and some committees within the ABA said, it's great we have these statistics and the studies and stuff, but if we don't do anything about it, that information really doesn't mean anything. And so what can we do about it? And so they, in an absolute record time for the ABA, they put together a committee, studied the issue, got the information they needed, and formulated some very practical recommendations for various stakeholders within our profession. And I can tell you, anybody that's ever worked within the ABA, for them, usually they did all this in a year. Usually it takes them a year just to figure out who's on the committee. So I applaud them for their quick work. And also, it's intended to be practical. It's not a let's reinvent the profession overnight, completely different. That's neither achievable nor practical, and nobody would really get behind that. And so they came up with some recommendations, though, that I think can really bring about some very positive change in our profession. So the report was published again in August of 2017. If you've been, if you subscribe to Bar Magazine's legal publications, I'm sure you've seen discussion about this topic during the past year. In fact, I think it was our November-December issue of the NSBA Bar Magazine was focused on wellness. So, and we'll continue to focus on that. The other important thing to remember here is this is not a topic of the month or topic of the year type discussion. This is really something that we're going to have to take the long-term approach to bring about some change, but we absolutely can do it. And I can tell you, NLAP will do what it can to help be a leader in this area, but it's really going to require everybody, law firms, law schools, the courts, everybody to get on board to bring about some real change. So who is on that committee? Really groups, represented here, judges, the disciplinary council, bar examiners, law schools, young lawyers, really everybody, obviously the LAP programs are involved through our organization called CoLAP. And so I think we really had the right people at the table for this discussion. And this is just a quote that came out of the report, and I think it, it's very telling. To be a good lawyer, one has to be a healthy lawyer. Sadly, our profession is falling short when it comes to well-being. Of the two studies that I mentioned just a moment ago. One was about lawyers, one was about law students. Referenced above reveal that too many lawyers and law students experience chronic stress and high rates of depression and substance use. These findings are incompatible with the sustainable legal profession, and they raise troubling implications about lawyers' basic competence. The research suggests that the current state of lawyers' mental health cannot support a profession dedicated to client service and dependent upon public trust. We can't blame everything that goes wrong on issues relating to wellness, but certainly it's a significant contributing factor. I can tell you, as you know, the universe of people that come to NLAP for help and we're able to help, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those people are also within the universe of disciplinary counsel. And so, you know, there is a strong correlation between those two issues, and we want to make sure we can you know, really two things. One is preventative, and secondly is when people are affected, to get them help earlier in the process. So I realize change is difficult, and you know, quite frankly, you know, I'm with the rest of you. I don't always embrace change like I should. I think we have a picture here of, you know, this could be the, you know, the boardroom at Sears, or this could be the boardroom at, you know, at Blockbuster Video, you know, 10 years ago. You know, organizations, professions, employers who refuse to change in the face of a challenge, they generally don't survive, and things just don't get magically better without us taking some really intentional action. So the goals of that task force, pretty straightforward. Identify stakeholders and their roles, who can bring about change. Eliminate stigma. So there is a strong resistance, a strong help-seeking resistance within our profession. Lawyers, I think, tend to want to believe they can either handle their own problems, or they're concerned that if their problems become public, that it'll be used against them, you know, by competition, by disciplinary counsel, by their employer. And so we have this really strong kind of anti-help behavior that we need to change. Emphasizing well-being is an indispensable part of a lawyer's duty of competence. I mean, this is why the you know, the courts across the country, including the Nebraska Supreme Court, are really focused on this issue, is because they recognize the correlation between, you know, a lack of well-being within our profession and lawyers' ability to adequately represent their clients. Educating lawyers, judges, and law students. I can tell you, I've in the last year, I've probably spoken to over 2,000 lawyers at various CLEs and educational events. I've done a number of presentations at both law schools. I've gotten an opportunity to get in front of judges. So really, we're trying to help push this issue. NLAP can be that resource for you if you need information. If you want to be further educated in these areas, we'll help pull that together, whether it's ourselves or an outside source. We'll help identify that for you. And then taking small incremental changes or steps towards change. Again, we're back to the idea that we're not going to, you know, reinvent the profession overnight, and that it's a really big ship to turn. So, you know, what can each of the stakeholders, what can each of the parties, groups within our profession that can effectuate change, what can they do? And if they're all pushing towards the same direction, we will make progress. We have, and we will continue to. So who are the groups that can bring about change? First of all, you know, really all of us, being all lawyers as individuals, judges, our court system, legal employers certainly can bring about change, and they have a very strong voice in this conversation. Law schools, incredibly important that our law schools, and I can tell you, and I'll talk more about it in a moment, our law schools are getting really out in front on this issue. I think maybe they've lagged in the past, and I think they're now out in front of all of us. And you know, bad habits created in law school are carried into the profession, and good habits created in law school are also carried into the profession. So they can really get our young lawyers heading in the right direction. Legal regulators, that would be your disciplinary counsel, your bar commission that allows people to get licensed. Bar associations certainly can play a role in all this. You know, that's really all lawyers kind of coming together. Bar associations have the ability to do things like CLE, like we're doing today, and to put resources behind that. You also have legal leadership within the bar associations. Malpractice carriers, Certainly in Nebraska, no, malpractice is not required, but obviously many of you have malpractice insurance. Malpractice carriers also see a strong correlation between wellness programs and having the right resources for lawyers who are affected by more significant maybe mental health issues, and they can help bring about change by the way they price their malpractice insurance and encourage law firms and attorneys to engage in certain proactive activities to prevent these issues from either happening or prevent them from becoming as severe before somebody gets help. And then lastly, lawyers assistance program. Certainly we should have a role in all this, and we need to help be really a resource. We're not going to bring about change by ourselves, but certainly we can be the conduit to bring all these groups together, and also an exchange of information for everyone. So, again, great quote from this task force report. Change will require a wide-eyed and candid assessment of our members' state of well-being, accompanied by a courageous commitment to re-envision what it means to be life as a lawyer. That's pretty aspirational, but really, there is a generation of young lawyers who aren't just focused on salary as their determination of what job they're going to take or who they're going to work for. They're looking for other things, and if you want to attract that talent, you need to understand what those other things are, and having a strong kind of healthy workplace is one of those things. And so there's ways that you can go out and grab that best talent by engaging in this type of activity. And I'll tell you, I've been to a number of law firms over the past year who are very focused on this and want to do better, and realize that it's in the best interest of their firm to do better, not only in attracting talent, but retaining the talent that they have, and having those lawyers be as productive as possible. So what can you all do? Number one, it's kind of acknowledge the issue. Realize our profession is not perfect. We have areas we need to improve. We need to talk about those things and get them out in the open. Quite frankly, the legal profession, those studies I mentioned, lawyers as a whole are affected by depression and anxiety and substance use issues at rates greater than the general public. And it shouldn't be that way. We have advantages and resources that not everybody else has. We have an education. We have income levels greater than the average person, and access to healthcare greater than the average person. And so we should be ahead of others, not lagging behind, but it's going to require some change to get there. Obviously, taking care of yourself and then looking out for each other. I get a number of phone calls a year from somebody who's really concerned about another lawyer or judge, doesn't really maybe even know what's going on with them, but sees a significant change in behavior, sees other types of warning signs, and wants us to reach out and talk to that person, see what's going on. Occasionally, it's a mental health or substance use issue. Occasionally, it's somebody's going through a divorce, or somebody's got a sick parent, or other things going on in their life that are affecting them. But we can be a resource for any of those people. Lead by example. If you're a law firm and you want a wellness initiative, then you need to have your leaders in that law firm model that behavior, or quite frankly, no one else is going to follow within the firm. And it's more than just hiring a corporate EAP, employee assistance program provider, and handing everyone the phone number. It's really a cultural thing more than it is just resources. EAPs are fine, but frankly, they don't get used very often because people feel like if they use them, it's going to be held against them by their employer. Advocate for change. Set the bar for any legal employers out there. Set the bar. You will attract the best talent. Consider mental health when making life decisions. I always tell law students this: wherever you choose to work in the field of law, it shouldn't just be dollars and cents. It should also be how this will affect you from a mental health standpoint. Develop an action plan, whether you're an individual or a law firm, and measure success and adjust course as needed. Again, this is not topic of the month or topic of the year. We'll have a long-term plan to bring about change, and then we need to measure that and make sure we're achieving it. And if we're not, what can we do different? And many of you may have ideas or suggestions on what that is. So brings us to the end of our presentation today. I appreciate everyone's attention. Hopefully you got something out of it, something you can take away with you and incorporate in your life, you know, your hopefully healthier life. If you have a question, want to learn more, have a suggestion, have a topic you'd like to have NLAP do for a CLE, glad to hear from you. My contact information is on the screen. You can also find me on the BAR website, the NSBA website at nebar.com/NLAP. Thank you.